The Larry O'Connor Show podcast.
Remember last year, around this time last year, when the Montgomery County Council got real excited about defying ICE and thumbing their nose at the Trump administration and putting in place their sanctuary policies that they didn't call sanctuary policies, but they were sanctuary policies, condemning and prohibiting the Montgomery County Police from cooperating with federal officials, even when apprehending violent criminals who are in this country illegally. We participated in a protest out in front of the Rockville location of the county executive. Hundreds and hundreds of Montgomery County residents came out to voice their disapproval. Within a week, they had modified their policy. We were told that they said, okay. We are going to communicate with ICE, and we'll give them a heads up before we're not going to let them into the jail, but we'll give them a heads up before we release someone. That's what they told us a year ago. And yet we keep hearing these stories of people who are released and then go on to commit more crimes. Well, what really is the policy here? Thanks to our friends at the Immigration Reform Law Institute, they've been investigating this, and they've come up with some shocking information. Joining us right now to share it with you is the former acting director of ICE and a senior fellow at the Immigration Reform Law Institute, Tom Homan. Director Homan, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I read this press release that came out with this study, and it is despicable. There was one sex offender, second-degree rape and sexual abuse criminal, suspect, who was released with 28 minutes notice to ICE. They called ICE with 28 minutes notice?
Yeah, and it's just ridiculous because I know how jails operate. I've worked in jails. When the decision is made to release somebody, it can take hours to process that person out of custody. So this was a blatant attempt. It's smoke and mirrors. That's what they're doing. They're still not cooperating how they should be cooperating. With some of that type of criminal history, you would want to give ICE as much time as possible and ensure that he's taken into custody rather than releasing a public safety threat back into the public. It's just ridiculous.
And again, these are people who have valid ICE detainers against them. ICE is going through all of the proper legal frameworks here to make sure that everything is done properly in accordance with the Constitution. It's Montgomery County who is forcing these criminals back onto the streets.
Well, Montgomery County is using an argument that detainers aren't constitutionally acceptable, which, there's several districts. The 5th District Court found the Congress they are constitutionally legal. But the question is, at what point does Commissioner Elrich and jail take responsibility for knowingly releasing a public safety threat back into the public when they don't have to? When Congress wrote the INA, they wrote in law what a detainer is, and a detainer is viable. And our sheriff said, well, we want a criminal warrant. Process in place for a criminal warrant. The process doesn't exist. That is not the way our lawmakers set this up. But they refuse to admit that. Detainers are accepted by most law enforcement across this country. It's only the liberal, far left cities that are fighting ICE in this. Most sheriffs accept our detainers as is and agree that.
Have we lost you? Yeah, your signal's dropping out there. Director Homan, your signal's dropping out there. If you can get in one location, if it's possible, that'd be great. Otherwise, I understand it's mobile. Can I ask you, because you were the former acting director of ICE, you know the infrastructure, you know how things work. This often comes up when we have these conversations, knowing that the regional office is in Baltimore. Why can't ICE just set up a de facto location in Montgomery County? We're not going to change Montgomery County. They are who they are. But we got to keep the bad guys off the streets. Why can't we just put in a temporary location for ICE so that they're right there?
Well, number one, the sheriff already said, Elrich already said he doesn't give ICE space at any of the facilities. But as far as ICE getting a facility nearby, I am told they're working on that.
Okay.
So, but bottom line is,
but they shouldn't have to.
No, why wouldn't a law enforcement officer want to keep a public safety threat out of the public? It just makes sense. And you look at recidivism rates. He's going to recommit an offense, and he's going to recommit an offense in the very community in which he lives, which is the immigrant community. If you look at the 8 rapes of illegal aliens in that county when they didn't call ICE, 7 of those victims were immigrants. So tell me how that policy protects the immigrant community. You put them at greater risk of crime.
Yeah.
You put ICE at greater risk. Let's go knock on a door. It just doesn't make sense. This county needs to step up and do the right thing for their taxpayers.
So when the members of the county council and when Mark Elrich, the county executive, when they respond and they say, hey, we're giving to the worst offenders, to the sex abuse offenders, the violent criminals, we're giving notice, you're saying, Tom Homan, the data suggests that that's a complete and total lie. It's not real notice.
No, they're smoke and mirrors. They may give notice, but they can call a minute ahead of time. They know they can't respond. They know where ICE is at. They know ICE is out there looking for bad guys all across that county. ICE can't sit on their front doorstep. They know that. But they need to take the effort to say, okay, this guy's a public safety threat. He's been convicted of a serious sexual offense. If we have an option to release him to the street or release him to a federal law enforcement agency who has legal authority to detain and remove him from the country, not just from the community, from the country, you would think a law enforcement agency would say, I'm going to do that. You would think a county commissioner whose number one responsibility is to protect his community would do that. This is on them. This is non-cooperation. It's smoke and mirrors.
And final question, Tom Homan. Our guest is Tom Homan, Senior Fellow for the Immigration Reform Law Institute, has a brand new report out today called 28 Minutes to Apprehend a Predator. They only gave ICE 28 minutes in one case for a sex abuse accused rapist. In your mind, what would be the appropriate amount of notice? What if they got a judge that said, okay, you got to release this guy, how many hours should they give ICE to come and get him?
It should be 4 hours. You know, again, most law enforcement agencies across this country give us 2 days.
Yeah,
48 hours get there. But you know, since ICE is not that far away, give them at least 4 or 5 hours. There's no reason not to. I worked in a jail. I booked people in a jail. I know how long it takes to book somebody out. They're waiting for the very last minute. As soon as the decision is made to that guy to be released, the first thing they should do is call ICE. That's the first thing they should do as far as the book out procedures. That's easily done.
Yeah. So this whole thing, this whole argument, this whole fight is over 4 hours. It's unbelievable. And even that, these Democrats who run Montgomery County refuse to acquiesce or refuse to budge on 4 hours to detain this person.
I wish those county commissioners and those board of directors would see what I've seen in my 34 years. They take us a little more serious. Enough death, enough rapes, enough child predators. We got enough of that crime already going on. If those people are in the country illegally, we can not only remove them from the community, remove them from the country, and make it that much safer in our neighborhoods.
Well, and the bottom line is these predators aren't going from the jailhouse to Tacoma Park. They're not going to Silver Spring. They're not going to Bethesda Chevy Chase. They're going to the parts of Montgomery County where these elected officials don't live, and that's why they're fine with it. We'll leave it there. Tom Homan, always good to talk to you, sir. Thank you for joining us today. Very busy day. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Larry O'Connor Show podcast from 105.9 FM, Washington's Mall, WMAL. Listen weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. for the latest and download more free original content daily from WMAL.com.